My name is Harper. I am 25 years old. And for the last 2 years, my own father has made sure that I cannot get hired by a single company in the entire city of Chicago. It is not because I lack qualifications. I graduated from an Ivy League university with honors. I have glowing recommendations from my professors. I have a portfolio that should have opened doors at any marketing firm in the state. But none of that mattered. None of it mattered because my father, Sterling Vance, told every potential employer in town that I was a thief. He did not just refuse to help me, he actively destroyed me. Sterling Vance is a real estate mogul. He owns half the skyline. He plays golf with senators and drinks scotch with the owners of the agencies I applied to. Whenever I landed an interview, whenever I got close to an offer, he would make a phone call. He would tell them that I had sticky fingers. He would tell them that I embezzled funds from the family trust. He painted a picture of an unstable, dishonest daughter who could not be trusted with a corporate credit card. He thought he had broken me. He thought that 2 years of rejection would bring me crawling back to his mansion. He thought that watching me struggle to pay rent on a basement apartment would force me to beg for his forgiveness. He said to me once, "Maybe now you will learn to respect the hand that feeds you." He was wrong. He did not know about the blind trust. He did not know what my grandmother, Nana Rose, had done 5 years ago, or why the board of directors was secretly waiting for me. Before I continue with how I took down his empire, if you find this story worth hearing, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Only do it if you genuinely connect with what I am sharing. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. I would love to know. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, to the lie that started it all. To the outside world, the Vance family was American royalty. We lived in a 6-bedroom estate in Lake Forest, with manicured lawns that looked like golf courses and a driveway filled with imported European cars. My father, Sterling Vance, was a pillar of the Chicago business community. He was the man on the cover of real estate magazines, the man shaking hands with the mayor, the man whose charitable donations were always made with a giant novelty check and a press release. My mother, Eleanor, played her part perfectly. She was the pristine hostess, draped in pearls and designer silk, always smiling, always agreeable. It looked like the perfect life. But inside those limestone walls, the air was so cold you could see your breath. Sterling Vance did not raise children. He managed assets. To him, my older brother Preston and I were not human beings with feelings or dreams. We were extensions of his brand. And like any investment, we were expected to yield a high return. If we made him look good, we were rewarded with money. If we embarrassed him, or worse, if we had an original thought that contradicted his, we were punished. He never raised his voice. Sterling Vance did not need to yell to be terrifying. He would just look at you with eyes like broken glass and cut you off. He would cut off your access to the car, your allowance, your contact with friends. He called it discipline. I call it psychological warfare. My mother was no help. She was a ghost in her own home. She spent her days shopping for things she did not need and her evenings nursing a glass of Chardonnay that never seemed to get empty. Whenever Dad was cruel, whenever he belittled me for not being tough enough or smart enough, Mom would just look away. She would smooth her skirt, take a sip of wine, and say, "Harper, do not upset your father. You know how much stress he is under." She chose her comfort over her children. She chose the lifestyle over the truth. And then there was Preston. My brother was 3 years older than me, and he was the golden child. Preston was everything Dad wanted, ruthless, arrogant, and obsessed with status. He went to business school, joined Dad's firm right out of college, and treated everyone beneath him like they were invisible. At family dinners, the conversation always revolved around Preston. Dad would ask him about his deals, how much money he had saved by cutting corners, or how he had outmaneuvered a rival. They would laugh together about crushing small businesses. I would sit at the end of the long mahogany table, pushing food around my plate, trying to make myself as small as possible. I was the disappointment. I was the artsy one. I wanted to study literature and work for a non-profit. I cared about people, not profits. I remember the day I told my father I wanted to be a writer. I was 18 years old. He looked at me over the top of his newspaper and laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. He said, "And what is the return on investment for writing stories, Harper?" "Zero." "You want to waste your life? Fine. But do not expect me to fund your mediocrity. That was the Vance family motto. Excellence or exile. There was no room for love, only performance. I ended up going to a state university on a partial scholarship and taking out student loans, just to get away from them. I thought that if I moved out, if I built my own life without his money, I would be free. I did not understand that for a narcissist like Sterling Vance, you are never free. You are property, and nobody takes property from Sterling Vance without paying a steep price. I was about to learn just how steep that price was. It all started when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore in college, living in a cramped dormitory with my roommate, Sarah. Sarah was the complete opposite of me. She was loud, funny, and came from a family that had plenty of love but very little money. One Tuesday night in November, Sarah collapsed on our bathroom floor. She was doubled over in pain, her face pale and covered in sweat. It was her appendix. We rushed to the emergency room, but when the admissions nurse asked for her insurance card, Sarah started to cry. Her coverage had lapsed 2 weeks prior because her father had lost his job at the factory. In the United States, a simple surgery can ruin your financial life if you are uninsured. The nurse looked sympathetic, but she needed a payment method to process the admission for immediate surgery. Sarah was terrified. I was terrified. In that moment, I made a choice that would haunt me for the next 6 years. I pulled out the black American Express card my father had given me. For emergencies only, he had said when he handed it to me. For car breakdowns or flight cancellations. Do not test me, Harper. This was an emergency. A life or death emergency. I swiped the card. The initial charge was $2,500. I told myself I would pay it back. I picked up extra shifts at the campus library. I worked weekends at a coffee shop, steaming milk until my hands were raw. It took me 4 months of skipping meals and working late nights, but I did it. I transferred every single cent back to my father's account. I even added interest. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I had proven that I was responsible. I was naive. 2 weeks after the final transfer, my phone rang. It was Sterling. "Come home this weekend," he said. It was not a request. It was a summon. When I walked into his study, the air smelled of stale cigar smoke and expensive leather. He was sitting behind his massive oak desk, reading a document. He did not look up when I entered. He let me stand there for 5 full minutes, shifting my weight from foot to foot, feeling like a child again. Finally, he slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was the credit card statement from November. The charge to the hospital was circled in thick red ink. "I paid that back," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I paid back every penny, Dad. It was for Sarah. She needed surgery." Sterling looked at me with flat, dead eyes. "I did not ask for an explanation, Harper. I am looking at a theft." "It is not theft if I repaid it," I protested. "It is unauthorized use of a financial instrument," he said calmly, as if he were explaining the weather. "Legally, that is fraud. In the state of Illinois, credit card fraud over $500 is a felony. Do you know what happens to felons, Harper? They do not finish college. They certainly do not get hired by respectable companies." My stomach dropped. You would not call the police on your own daughter." He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "I would do whatever is necessary to protect my assets. However, I am a generous man. I am willing to overlook this criminal indiscretion if we can come to an understanding." He opened a drawer and pulled out a legal document. It was thick, bound in blue paper. "This," he said, tapping the cover, "is a formal renunciation of your inheritance. It states that upon my passing, you will receive nothing. No trust fund, no property, no stocks. In exchange for signing this, I will agree not to press charges for the theft you committed in November." I stared at him. The room seemed to spin. "You want me to sign away my future? Because I saved my friend's life?" "I want you to sign away your entitlement," he corrected. "You have proven you are irresponsible with money. This is for your own good. Sign it, or I call the district attorney right now." He picked up the phone. His finger hovered over the dial pad. I looked at his face. There was no hesitation, no fatherly warmth. He meant it. I was 19. I was scared. I picked up the pen. My hand shook so badly I could barely write my name, but I signed it. I signed away everything just to stay out of jail. Good choice, Sterling said, snatching the paper away before the ink was even dry. Now get out of my office. That was the moment I stopped seeing him as my father. That was the moment I realized I was entirely alone. I left that house vowing never to ask him for a single thing again. But as I would soon find out, Sterling Vance was not done with me yet. He did not just want my inheritance. He wanted my total destruction. I spent the next 2 years trying to rebuild my life from scratch. I graduated with honors. A degree in marketing clutched in my hand like a lifeline. I applied to every startup, every creative agency, every nonprofit in Chicago. I wanted to work somewhere that valued innovation, somewhere that didn't care about the Vance name. I had a portfolio full of spec campaigns, a resume sparkling with internships, and a hunger to prove myself. But Sterling Vance had a different plan. He didn't just cut me off financially, he cut me off professionally. It started subtly. I would get an interview with a promising tech startup in the West Loop. The hiring manager would be enthusiastic, praising my ideas, practically offering me the job on the spot. "We'll be in touch by Monday," they'd say with a warm smile. Then Monday would come and go. Tuesday would pass in silence. By Wednesday, I'd get a generic rejection email. "Thank you for your interest, but we have decided to pursue other candidates." At first, I thought it was just bad luck. The job market is tough, right? But after the 10th rejection, I started to notice a pattern. Every single company I applied to had some connection to my father's network. The CEO of the ad agency was on the board of the same charity as my mother. The founder of the software firm was a member of the same country club as Sterling. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a blockade. One afternoon, I got a call from a recruiter I had been working with for weeks. Her name was Jessica, and she had always been kind to me. Her voice sounded strained on the phone. "Harper," she said slowly. "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I think you deserve to know why you keep hitting a wall." My heart started to pound. "What is it, Jessica?" "I was speaking with the hiring manager at Delta Group this morning. They loved your interview. They were ready to send an offer letter. But then the CEO got a phone call." "From whom?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. "From your father," Jessica said quietly. "He told them." "Harper, he told them you were fired from your last internship for embezzlement. He said you have character issues and that hiring you would be a liability." I felt the blood drain from my face. Embezzlement? I had never stolen a dime in my life. The credit card incident was years ago, and I had paid it back. "He is lying," I choked out. "Jessica, that is not true. You have to believe me." "It doesn't matter what I believe," she said sadly. "In this town, Sterling Vance's word is gold. If he says you are risky, nobody is going to touch you." "I'm sorry, Harper. I can't represent you anymore." The line went dead. I sat on the floor of my tiny apartment, staring at the phone. He was blacklisting me. My own father was sabotaging my career before it could even begin, ensuring that no matter how hard I worked, I would never succeed without his permission. He wanted me to fail. He wanted me desperate, and he was winning. By the time December arrived, the bitter Chicago winter had settled in, and my bank account balance had dropped to exactly $47. My rent for the basement apartment was 2 weeks overdue. My landlord, a patient man named Mr. Henderson, had started leaving polite but firm notes taped to my door. I was eating instant noodles twice a day and walking 3 miles to the public library just to use the free internet because I could no longer afford Wi-Fi. It was a pathetic existence for a young woman who had grown up in a mansion with a personal chef and a heated driveway. I realized I had to stop applying for marketing jobs. My father's blockade was impenetrable. I needed cash, and I needed it immediately. I swallowed my pride and walked into a temporary employment agency on the south side of the city. I wore a wool hat pulled low over my eyes and a heavy coat to hide my figure. On the application form, I did not list my Ivy League degree. I did not list my internships. Under experience, I simply wrote, "Willing to work nights. Heavy lifting. Cleaning." The woman behind the counter looked at my soft, uncalloused hands and raised an eyebrow. My stomach turned over. The Zenith was the most exclusive fitness club in Chicago. Membership cost $500 a month. It was a sprawling complex of glass and steel where hedge fund managers, socialites, and the children of the city's elite went to sweat out their toxins. It was exactly the kind of place my brother, Preston, would go. It was exactly the kind of place where I used to be a member. "I will take it," I said quickly, before I could lose my nerve. "It pays $15 an hour," she said. "Shift starts at 10 at night and ends at 6 in the morning. You start tonight." That night, I traded my business casual blouses for a shapeless gray jumpsuit that smelled faintly of industrial bleach. My job was not glamorous. I was assigned to the locker rooms and the spa area. My duties included scrubbing the steam rooms, wiping down the marble countertops, and collecting the damp, heavy towels that the members dropped on the floor like they were shedding skin. The physical labor was exhausting. My back ached constantly from bending over to scrub the grout between the tiles. My hands, once manicured, became dry and cracked from the harsh chemicals in the cleaning spray, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional torture. I was invisible. The members who came in late at night, the insomniacs, the workaholics, the party girls trying to detox before dawn did not see me. I was just a ghost in a gray uniform. One night, I was polishing the mirror in the women's dressing area when two girls walked in. They were about my age, wearing matching designer yoga sets. I recognized the brand. I used to own the exact same leggings. One of them dropped a used tissue near my foot. She did not apologize. She did not even look down. She just kept talking to her friend about her upcoming vacation to Street Barts. I reached down, picked up the tissue with my gloved hand, and threw it away. "God, the service here is slipping," the girl muttered to her friend as they walked toward the sauna. "Did you see that smudge on the glass?" I stood there, gripping the spray bottle until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that I graduated summa cum laude. I wanted to tell them that I used to vacation in Street Barts too. But I said nothing. I needed the $15 an hour. I needed to eat. I spent every shift in a state of high anxiety, constantly checking the door, terrified that someone I actually knew would walk in. I kept my head down. I wore a face mask even when I did not have to. I thought I had hit rock bottom. I thought scrubbing toilets at a luxury gym was the lowest point of my life. I was wrong. The humiliation was about to get much, much worse. It was 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. The gym was mostly silent, save for the low hum of the ventilation system and the rhythmic thud of my mop hitting the rubber floor of the free weight section. I was exhausted. My shoulders burned, and my feet were swollen in my cheap sneakers. I was just finishing up the main aisle when I heard the double doors swing open. Laughter echoed off the high ceilings. It was loud, raucous, and unmistakably entitled. My stomach dropped. I knew that laugh. It was a sound that had haunted my childhood dinners. It was sharp, cruel, and devoid of any real joy. It was my brother, Preston. I froze. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my veins. I pulled my cap down lower, praying that my face mask and the dim lighting would protect me. I turned my back to the entrance, furiously scrubbing a spot on the floor that was already clean, hoping they would just walk past me to the locker rooms. "No way," a voice boomed. Is that who I think it is?" I stopped breathing. Footsteps approached. Expensive sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. I did not turn around. "Harper?" Preston's voice was dripping with mock surprise. "Harper Vance? Is that you?" I slowly straightened up. There was no point in hiding. I turned to face him. Preston was standing there with three of his friends, guys I recognized from his fraternity days, guys who used to drink my father's scotch and ignore me at parties. They were all wearing designer workout gear that cost more than I made in a month. Preston looked me up and down, taking in the gray jumpsuit, the rubber gloves, the mop bucket. A slow, malicious grin spread across his face. "Guys," he said, pulling his phone out of his pocket. "You are not going to believe this. The prodigal sister has returned." He tapped the screen. I saw the flash of the camera. He was recording. "Preston, please," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Do not do this." "Say hello to the internet, Harper," he shouted, holding the phone up so his followers could see both of us. He was live streaming. "Look at this, everyone. This is what happens when you try to steal from the Vance family. You end up scrubbing floors where you belong." His friends snickered. One of them, a guy named Chad, leaned in. Is she actually working here, dude? That is tragic. She is the help now, Preston laughed, moving the camera closer to my face. I tried to turn away, but he stepped in front of me. Look at her. The artist. The intellectual. How is that creative writing degree working out for you, Harper? Are you finding a lot of inspiration in the urinal cakes? I felt tears pricking my eyes. Preston, stop. I am working. Leave me alone. Oh, you are working? He looked at the protein shake he was holding. It was a thick purple berry blend. Well, let me give you some job security. Without breaking eye contact with the camera lens, he tipped the cup. The thick purple liquid splashed onto the pristine white floor I had just spent 20 minutes mopping. It splattered onto my sneakers. It pooled around my feet. Oops, Preston said, his voice flat. Clumsy me. Better clean that up, Harper. We do not want anyone slipping, do we? The gym went silent. His friends were not laughing anymore. They looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight. But Preston just kept the camera on me. Waiting. I stood there, trembling. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to throw the mop at him, to scream, to run. But I thought about the overdue rent notice. I thought about the empty refrigerator. I thought about the fact that if I lost this job, I would be on the street. Slowly, painfully, I knelt down. I took the rag from my belt and started to wipe up his mess. Good girl, Preston sneered. Make sure you get it all. Daddy always said you would learn your place eventually. He ended the stream, laughed once more, and walked toward the weight machines, his entourage trailing behind him. I stayed on the floor, scrubbing the purple stain, tears finally spilling over my mask and onto the cold tile. By the time my shift ended at 6 o'clock in the morning, the video had circulated through every social circle in Chicago. My phone blew up with notifications. People from high school, people from college, my father's business partners, they had all seen it. The comments were brutal. Pathetic. Karma is real. Imagine stealing from your own family and ending up like this. I sat in the locker room, huddled in the corner, and cried until I could not breathe. I felt stripped bare. My dignity was gone. My reputation was destroyed. I had nothing left to lose. And in that moment of absolute darkness, something inside me snapped. I was done crying. I was done hiding. If they wanted a villain, I would show them what a villain could really do. I walked out of the Zenith at dawn, feeling hollow. I took the bus back to my apartment, ignoring the stares of the morning commuters. When I got home, I did not sleep. I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the peeling paint on the wall. My phone was still buzzing with hateful messages, but I did not check it. I just sat there, waiting for something, anything. Around noon, there was a knock at my door. I froze. Was it my landlord? Was it Preston coming to finish the job? Or maybe Sterling had sent someone to evict me personally. I crept to the peephole. Standing in the hallway was an older man in a charcoal suit. He had a briefcase in one hand and a serious expression. It was Mr. Abernathy. My heart skipped a beat. Mr. Abernathy was my grandmother's lawyer. Nana Rose had passed away 5 years ago, but Mr. Abernathy had been her trusted confidant for decades. He was the one who had handled her estate, the one who had read her will, the will that left everything to charity. Why was he here? I opened the door a crack. Mr. Abernathy? Miss Vance, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. May I come in? I let him into my tiny, cluttered apartment. He looked around, taking in the cheap furniture and the stack of rejection letters on the counter. He did not judge. He just sighed. I saw the video, Harper, he said quietly. Your grandmother would be heartbroken. Nana is gone, I said, my voice thick. And I have nothing left, Mr. Abernathy. Sterling took it all. That is what Sterling believes, Mr. Abernathy said. He set his briefcase on the table and clicked the latches open. But Sterling Vance is wrong. Your grandmother did not leave everything to charity, Harper. She left something for you. I stared at him. But, the will, the public will, he corrected. The one Sterling saw. But there was a second document, a private trust. Nana Rose knew exactly who her son was. She knew he would try to control you, so she created a failsafe. He pulled a thick file from his bag. She instructed me to wait until you were truly desperate, until you had hit rock bottom and had nowhere else to turn. She wanted to make sure you were ready to fight back. He slid the file toward me. Harper, Sterling has been hiding this from you for 5 years. But today, the waiting ends. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside was a legal document titled, The Rose Vance Blind Trust. And as I read the first page, my breath caught in my throat. This wasn't just money. This was power. I stared at the document in front of me. I read the words, but my brain refused to process them. It was not a check for $1 million. It was not a deed to a house in the Hamptons. It was something far more dangerous. It was a stock certificate. 51%, Mr. Abernathy said softly. Class A voting shares. Vance Global Enterprises. I looked up at him, my mouth dry. Mr. Abernathy. I do not understand. My father owns Vance Global. He built it. No, Mr. Abernathy corrected, a small, tight smile playing on his lips. Your grandfather built it. And when he passed away, he left the controlling interest to your grandmother, Rose. Sterling has always been the face of the company, the chief executive officer, but he never owned the majority. Nana Rose did. He tapped the paper. Your father is a narcissist, Harper. Nana Rose knew that if she left these shares to you directly in her will, Sterling would have found a way to take them. He would have bullied you, sued you, or tricked you into signing them over before you were old enough to understand their value. So, she created a blind trust. A blind trust? I whispered. The Phoenix Group, he said. Have you heard your father mention it? My eyes widened. I had heard that name 1,000 times at the dinner table. The Phoenix Group was the mysterious silent partner that held the majority stake in the company. Sterling hated them. He spent years complaining that he could not make major decisions without those faceless cowards signing off. He had tried to buy them out for a decade. He has been trying to buy these shares, I realized. From you? Mr. Abernathy nodded. He just did not know it. Nana Rose set up the trust so that the identity of the beneficiary would remain a total secret until your 25th birthday. But there was a clause. An emergency clause. He flipped to the second page. If the beneficiary is subjected to public humiliation or financial ruin caused by immediate family members, the trust activates immediately. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. The video of Preston mocking me at the gym was playing. Your brother, Mr. Abernathy said, just handed you the keys to the kingdom. By posting that video, by proving to the trustees that your family was actively destroying your livelihood, he triggered the clause. As of this morning, the Phoenix Group is no longer a silent partner. The Phoenix Group is you. I looked back at the certificate. 51%. That meant I had the controlling vote. That meant I could overrule the board. That meant I could overrule the CEO. So, I said, my voice trembling, does this mean I can get my job back? Mr. Abernathy laughed. It was a genuine, hearty sound. Harper, you do not need a job. You own the company. You can fire the CEO. I sat back in my chair, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. Sterling Vance had spent 2 years trying to turn me into a beggar. He had blacklisted me. He had humiliated me. And in his arrogance, he had completely missed the fact that the person he was stepping on was the only person who had the power to fire him. Sterling is hosting the IPO launch party tonight at the Grand Hotel, Mr. Abernathy said, closing his briefcase. He is planning to announce Preston as his successor. The entire board will be there. The press will be there. He looked at me. Do you have a dress, Harper? I looked at my stained gray sweatpants. No. Well, he said, standing up. We should probably go shopping. You cannot walk into your first board meeting looking like that. For the first time in 2 years, I smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who had just realized she was holding a loaded gun. Let's go, I said. The ballroom of the Grand Hotel was a sea of black ties and shimmering sequins. It was the kind of event where a single bottle of champagne cost more than my entire college tuition. Sterling Vance stood at the very center of the room, basking in the adoration of the Chicago elite. He looked invincible. His tuxedo was custom-made in Italy, his silver hair was perfectly coiffed, and his smile was dazzling. To the hundreds of investors, politicians, and journalists in the room, he was the absolute picture of success. Beside him stood Preston. My brother was preening like a peacock. He was shaking hands, clapping older men on the back, and acting as if he had built the company himself with his own 2 hands. I could see him showing people his phone, probably replaying the video of me scrubbing the gym floor. They were laughing. They were clinking their crystal glasses and toasting to the future of Vance Global Enterprises. Tonight was the night Sterling had been waiting for his entire career. The initial public offering was scheduled for the next morning. The company's stock was predicted to skyrocket, making the family billions. And in less than an hour, Sterling was going to step up to the microphone and officially name Preston as his successor. He was planning to hand the keys to the kingdom to the son who bullied me, while leaving his daughter to rot in poverty. The air in the room was electric with anticipation. Waiters circulated with trays of caviar. A string quartet played softly in the corner. It was a celebration of power, of legacy, of the Vance name. But as the guests sipped their drinks and gossiped about the market, they had no idea that the real owner of Vance Global was standing just outside the double doors. They did not know that the Phoenix Group, the mysterious majority shareholder they had all speculated about for years, was currently adjusting her silk dress and checking her lipstick in the hallway mirror. Sterling thought he was the king of the world. He thought he had won. He did not know that his reign was about to end in exactly 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, and esteemed colleagues, Sterling Vance stood at the polished mahogany podium, his voice booming through the speakers. He looked out at the sea of faces, his eyes glittering with triumph. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the logo of Vance Global Enterprises, projected in gold light. For 30 years, I have built this company from the ground up, Sterling continued, gesturing grandly. I have weathered storms, I have conquered markets, and tonight, on the eve of our initial public offering, I am proud to announce the future of this legacy. A future that is bold, a future that is strong, a future that bears the name of my son, Preston Vance. Applause rippled through the room. Preston stepped forward, grinning like a shark. He waved to the crowd, soaking in the admiration. He looked exactly like a younger version of our father, arrogant, entitled, and completely unaware that his world was about to end. Preston has proven himself to be a leader of vision, Sterling said, placing a hand on my brother's shoulder. He understands that in business, as in life, only the strong survive. That is why, effective immediately, I am appointing him as the new Chief Operating Officer of Vance Global. The applause grew louder. Waiters popped corks on champagne bottles. Sterling raised his glass. To the future! To the future! The crowd echoed. At that exact moment, the heavy double doors at the back of the ballroom slammed open. The sound was like a gunshot. It cut through the applause instantly. The string quartet stopped playing. 200 heads turned in unison. I stood in the doorway. I was not wearing the gray jumpsuit stained with gym cleaner. I was not wearing the oversized hoodie I used to hide in. I was wearing a tailored white tuxedo suit that Mr. Abernathy had selected just 2 hours ago. It was sharp, architectural, and completely commanding. My hair was pulled back, my makeup was flawless, and in my hand, I held a thick leather portfolio. For a moment, there was total silence. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning. Then, a murmur started. People began to whisper. They recognized me. They had seen the video. They had seen me scrubbing the floor on Instagram just 12 hours ago. Sterling squinted against the stage lights. When he realized who it was, his face twisted into a mask of pure disgust. He did not step away from the microphone. He wanted the room to hear him. Well, Sterling laughed, a cold, dry sound. It seems we have a party crasher. Harper, did you get lost on your way to the service entrance? I believe the janitorial staff uses the back door. A few people in the crowd chuckled nervously. Preston snickered. Maybe she is here to clean up the confetti. Dad. I did not flinch. I did not look down. I took a step forward. I began the long walk down the center aisle. My heels clicked rhythmically against the marble floor. Click, click, click. It was the sound of a clock counting down. Security! Sterling barked, his patience snapping. Remove her, now. She is trespassing. 2 large security guards in black suits stepped out from the shadows near the stage. They moved toward me, their hands reaching out to grab my arms. I would not do that if I were you. A deep voice boomed from behind me. Mr. Abernathy stepped into the light. He walked beside me, his briefcase in hand. The security guards froze. They recognized him. Everyone in the room recognized Arthur Abernathy. He was the most feared corporate attorney in Chicago. He was the man you called when you wanted to destroy a competitor legally. Mr. Abernathy? Sterling faltered. His grip on the podium tightened. Arthur, what are you doing with her? This is a private event. We are aware, Mr. Abernathy said calmly, and we are here on official business. I reached the foot of the stage. I looked up at my father. He looked down at me, his eyes filled with hate. Get out, he hissed, away from the microphone this time. You are embarrassing yourself. Go back to the gutter, Harper. I walked up the stairs. The room gasped. I was now standing on the stage, eye to eye with the great Sterling Vance. I reached out and took the microphone from his hand. He was so shocked that he let it go. I am not here to embarrass myself, Sterling, I said. My voice was steady. It did not shake. It was the voice of a woman who owned the building. I am here to introduce you to someone. I turned to the crowd. For 10 years, my father has told you that he answers to no one. But those of you who follow the market know that is not true. Vance Global has always had a majority shareholder, a silent partner known as the Phoenix Group. I paused. I saw the recognition in the eyes of the investors in the front row. They nodded. The Phoenix Group held 51% of the stock. They were the true power behind the throne. My father has spent the last decade trying to buy out the Phoenix Group, I continued. He has tried to intimidate them. He has tried to outmaneuver them. But he failed to realize one thing. I opened the leather portfolio. I pulled out the stock certificate that Mr. Abernathy had given me. I held it up for the cameras. I am the Phoenix Group. The silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Sterling's face went white. All the blood drained from his cheeks. He looked at the certificate. He saw the seal. He saw the signature. That is impossible, he stammered. My mother. She would never. Nana Rose knew exactly who you were, I said, my voice cold. She left the controlling interest in a blind trust. A trust that would activate fully if I was ever subjected to public humiliation or financial ruin by my own family. I turned to Preston. He was standing there with his mouth open, looking like a child who had just dropped his ice cream. Thank you for the video, Preston, I said. When you live-streamed me scrubbing floors this morning, you provided the final piece of evidence required to activate the trust. You literally handed me the company. Sterling lunged for the microphone. She is lying! She is a thief! She is mentally unstable! Mr. Abernathy stepped forward and blocked him. Sit down, Sterling, or I will have you removed for disorder. I looked back at the crowd. As the majority shareholder of Vance Global Enterprises, possessing 51% of the voting stock, I am calling this meeting to order. And my first act of business concerns the leadership of this company. I looked at my father. For the first time in my life, I was looking down at him. He looked small. He looked old. He looked terrified. Sterling Vance, I said, my voice ringing through the ballroom. You are fired. Sterling Vance turned a shade of purple that I had never seen before. He gripped the edges of the podium so hard that his knuckles turned white. Spittle flew from his mouth as he screamed into the microphone, his voice cracking with rage. This is insane! You cannot do this! I am the founder! I am the chairman! Security! I gave you an order! Remove this woman immediately! The two large security guards looked at each other. They looked at the furious, screaming man in the tuxedo. Then they looked at Mr. Abernathy, the most powerful lawyer in the room, who gave them a subtle, confirming nod. The guards did not move toward me. They took a step toward Sterling. You have no authority here anymore, Father, I said, my voice calm and amplified across the silent ballroom. And I am not just firing you for incompetence, I am firing you for cause. I signaled to the technician in the back of the room. Mr. Abernathy had prepared the presentation files earlier that afternoon. The massive screen behind me, which had just displayed the golden logo of the company, flickered. The image changed. A gasp went through the crowd. It was a forensic accounting spreadsheet. You spent 2 years telling everyone in Chicago that I was a thief, I said, walking closer to him. You blacklisted me. You ruined my reputation over a $2,000 medical bill that I paid back in full. You called me a criminal? I pointed to the screen. But who is the real criminal, Sterling? Because according to these documents, which Mr. Abernathy has already forwarded to the Securities and Exchange Commission, you have been siphoning company funds for 5 years. That is a lie! Sterling shrieked, though his eyes were darting around the room, looking for an escape. Is it? I asked. $3 million for renovations on the Lake Geneva estate? $1.5 million for consulting fees paid to a shell company registered in your name? You have been embezzling from the shareholders to fund your lifestyle. You stole from the very company you claimed to build. Flashbulbs erupted. The press was capturing every second of his downfall. The investors were whispering furiously, pulling out their phones to call their brokers. I turned to Preston. My brother was trying to back away into the shadows, his face pale and sweating. He looked like a trapped animal. And you, I said. He froze. You are not the chief operating officer, I said. You are not the heir. You are a liability. You used company property to harass and humiliate a private citizen. You exposed this corporation to a massive lawsuit. You are fired. Effective immediately. Preston opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. He looked at Dad, but Sterling was too busy hyperventilating to help him. I looked at the security guards. I pointed to the 2 men who had made my life a living hell for 25 years. Please escort these gentlemen off the premises, I said, and make sure they do not take any company property with them. The guards moved instantly. One grabbed Sterling by the arm. The other grabbed Preston by the shoulder. Get your hands off me! Sterling shouted, thrashing as they dragged him down the stairs. Do you know who I am? I am Sterling Vance. I am Sterling Vance. Not anymore, I whispered into the microphone. The entire room watched in stunned silence as the 2 men were marched down the long center aisle, past the investors they had tried to impress, past the journalists they had invited, and out the double doors. When the doors finally closed with a heavy thud, the silence lingered for 1 second more. And then, slowly at first, but building into a roar, the room erupted into applause. The morning after the gala, the headlines were brutal. Vance dynasty crumbles. Harris exposes fraud. The fall of the House of Vance. But I did not stay in Chicago to read them. I did not want to run Vance Global. I did not want to sit in my father's chair or walk the halls of a building built on bullying and corruption. 2 weeks after the board meeting, I sold my 51% stake to a rival firm for $80 million. It was enough money to ensure that I would never have to scrub a toilet again unless I wanted to. I used a large portion of that money to start the Rose Foundation, named after my grandmother. We provide legal aid, housing, and financial support to victims of domestic and financial abuse. We help people who are trapped, just like I was, find their own way out. I want to be the person that Nana Rose was for me. As for Sterling and Preston, the Securities and Exchange Commission is currently conducting a very thorough investigation into their finances. Sterling filed for personal bankruptcy last month. He lost the mansion in Lake Forest, the imported cars, and the country club membership. Preston was last seen trying to sell his designer watches on the internet to pay his rent. They have nothing left but each other, and I suspect that is a punishment worse than prison. I packed up my old car, the one I bought with my cleaning wages, and drove out of the city yesterday. The road ahead is wide open. I do not know exactly where I am going next, but for the first time in my life, the destination is entirely up to me. My name is Harper Vance. I was the daughter they called a thief. But in the end, the only thing I stole was my own life back. And I am finally free. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe for more. This image is completely not real. It is just a product of Photoshop and AI, used to illustrate the content only. Don't believe in that, verify the information, and prove that this image is not real. The stories and images on this channel are inspired by real experiences and online communities like Reddit. For privacy and storytelling purposes, names, dates, and certain details have been changed or created using AI. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events, is purely coincidental. This content is intended for entertainment and emotional reflection only. Viewer discretion is advised. Thank you for supporting our creative work.